a very Merry Christmas. I have a holiday story for you. And like most stories involving families with young children, this one is a perfect blend of chaos, catastrophe, grief, bliss, and absurdity. So buckle your seatbelts, because the opening scene of tranquility, in which a mother, myself, rocks a sleepy child in the early morning quiet, is about to be completely shattered. I'm alone that Christmas. My mother-in-law has died suddenly, and my husband and his brother are an 8-hour drive away from home over the holidays to put her affairs in order. They are searching particularly for a piece of paper they've promised her they will find. A life insurance policy, which she says is most of the material wealth she has to leave behind. They've promised to find it in order to give her peace of mind, but it's true that we also imagine we need that money for medical bills. The problem is, she couldn't tell them where it was. My mother-in-law was not a dedicated filer of papers, but over her long life of writing and correspondence, she was an avid collector of them. So, as I sit rocking the baby that Christmas Eve morning, my husband is 500 miles away, searching doggedly, sheet by sheet, through a room piled with papers. When I say I'm alone that Christmas, that's not quite accurate. In addition to the baby, there are also the two slightly older children, still asleep in their beds, blissfully unaware that their baby brother is about to wake, climb out of my lap, slip, and in a split second somehow manage to nearly bite his tongue off. Those of you with children won't need a full description of the pandemonium, the blood, the screams, or the panic trip to the doctors with two rudely awakened older siblings in tow. The good news, the doctor tells me, is that children's tongues heal very quickly, and it really isn't as bad as I think. I should just keep him comfortable as possible for a few days. The rocking chair would be a good idea. The bad news for me is that I'm the one cooking Christmas Eve dinner that night for my sister-in-law and our collective tribe of 7 spirited children. The worst news, I soon find out, is that sometime during the night, the oven element has burned out. Now, the reasonable thing to do, of course, is to call my sister-in-law and tell her that we're going to celebrate Christmas the same way we celebrated Thanksgiving a few years earlier, during a different crisis, with chips and salsa. But of all the things people ever call me, reasonable isn't at the top of the list. Idealistic, maybe, imaginative, stubborn probably carries top honors. And this year there are 2 complicating factors. Gluten allergies, which in these days means cooking things pretty much from scratch, and a goose thawing in the fridge. A dinner I've been looking forward to for months, fantasizing as only a harried librarian turned mother of 3 can about a happy, quiet, literary Christmas dinner. Didn't Tiny Tim's family eat roast goose? So after finding that the broiler part of the oven still does work, I decide we're going to eat that goose for dinner if it kills us. I won't bore you with all the details of a day filled with leaving the rocking chair every 20 minutes to take the goose out of the oven and turn it over in the pan, while also trying to keep the 2 older children happy and uninjured as they choose this particular day to quarrel endlessly over each and every toy. But I will tell you how in the middle of the afternoon I receive a phone call from my husband. He and his brother are worn and dejected. They've searched fruitlessly for the insurance policy. However, they have found a small fire safe. When shaken, it sounds as if there is something in it. Perhaps just a few sheets of paper. If only they had the combination, but that's also elusive. My husband sounds woebegone. He's left a phone message with the safe company, but of course it's late on Christmas Eve, so he doesn't expect an answer. At this point, he's not sure which is stronger, his grief over his mother's death or anger over the complete mess of things. And of course, he misses the family. From my vantage point with that family, being alone in a room full of papers doesn't sound like a bad option. But my lot that day is a different one. Hostessing the event, which eventually does arrive, bringing with it the gaggle of cousins, the hastily eaten dinner, the mountain of dishes, the wild play of the children, the inevitable contest to jump off the couch, the pet guinea pig loose under the furniture, the impromptu bubble bath of the two youngest girls in their princess costumes, the trip to church, the 5 minutes in the sanctuary and 55 minutes in the cry room, the dramatic parting of the cousins, the drive back home punctuated by the names of the colors of each traffic light screamed out gleefully from the back seat, the detours to indulge this month's obsessive interest. Have I mentioned the autism disorder? This month's obsessive interest in finding dead-end streets, and the final collapse into bed. The next morning finds me once again in the rocking chair with the baby. The phone rings. It's my husband. We tell each other Merry Christmas and I love you and all the important things. Then he says, Betty. There's an odd quality to his voice that I don't yet understand. Betty, he says, we opened the safe. It seems that some kind-hearted representative of the safe company has heard the desperation in my husband's voice and called him back. There is one piece of paper inside, my husband tells me. It is the original combination to the safe. Now let's scroll forward in time a few years, something many parents of young children wish to do on the worst of days. Thank goodness it's not possible to do that, because as time the great teacher reveals, even the most grueling and sleep-deprived days with our children turn out to be irreplaceable jewels strung on the luminous strand of our lives. But for the sake of the story, let's skip ahead nearly a decade to see what's become of all this. As for the life insurance policy, it never materialized, and perhaps it never really existed. Our goose was cooked to perfection, and we ate every last delicious bite. The wound on the baby's tongue healed to the thinnest of thin white scars, just as the doctor had predicted. The quarreling children have grown into perfectly wonderful teens who quarrel over bigger things. The grief has been assuaged, the finances stabilized, the guinea pig recaptured. Even the obsessive interest in dead ends is only a memory, a good one. So, of all the events of that chaotic day, practically nothing remains, except for the story. And just in case there's any doubt, I must tell you that in spite of everything, it's the story of a very Merry Christmas. Wishing you happy holidays this year, no matter what, and at the very least, a good story from Musser Public Library.